He stood on the sidewalk, confused, clutching a faded map that trembled in his hands. People passed by, some glanced, but most didn't bother. To them, he was just another lost old man in the city. But if anyone had looked closer, they might have noticed something different, something off. His suit was old but expensive. His watch? A limited edition. His eyes? Searching, desperate, as if he'd been running from more than just time. For hours, he wandered, ignored, unseen, and invisible. Until one boy stopped. A black teenager, barely 16, offered a hand everyone else had turned away from. What followed wasn't charity. It was destiny. Because that small act of kindness would uncover a secret no one was ready for, a truth that would turn every judgment upside down. Before we go deeper, tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from right now? I want to see how far this story reaches. Who was the old man? And why did the world try so hard not to see him? His name was Elijah Brooks, a quiet, hard-working teenager from the South Side. 16, tall for his age, always with his backpack hanging off one shoulder. Most days, he kept to himself, walking to and from school, helping his mom at the diner after hours. Life wasn't easy, but Elijah had learned early that kindness cost nothing, and sometimes it was all you had to give. Their neighborhood wasn't rich, but it had heart. Folks looked out for each other. The church on the corner ran food drives, the old barber told stories that never seemed to end, and the kids played basketball on cracked pavement until the streetlights came on. Elijah felt safe there, until he stepped outside of it. He'd seen how people looked at him in the city. The stares that lingered a second too long, the way doors locked when he walked by, the subtle shift of a purse to the other shoulder. He'd learnt to ignore it. To stay calm. To keep his head down. But deep down, he knew, kindness wasn't always returned. That morning had started like any other. The sun was sharp and bright, the air smelt faintly of rain, and Elijah had taken a different route home after dropping off some applications for a summer job. He wanted to earn enough to help his mom pay the bills and maybe, just maybe, save for college. That's when he saw him. An elderly man standing near the corner of a busy street, looking lost and out of place. His clothes didn't fit the neighborhood, a gray tailored suit, scuffed leather shoes, and a gold watch that glinted even under the clouds. People passed him like he was invisible. A few turned their heads, then kept walking. No one stopped. No one asked. Elijah slowed down. Something about the old man tugged at him. Maybe it was the confusion in his eyes or the way his hands shook as he turned the same map over and over, like it might suddenly make sense. For a moment, Elijah thought about minding his business. People ignored situations like this all the time. But his mother's voice echoed in his head, "If you can help, help." He hesitated at the crosswalk, unsure what he was stepping into. He didn't know who the man was or what story had brought him here. All he knew was that everyone else had walked away. And sometimes, the smallest decision, a single step forward, can change everything. Elijah took a step toward the old man, weaving through the crowd as horns blared and people brushed past without a glance. The man stood frozen near the curb, eyes darting between the street signs like they were written in another language. When Elijah reached him, he spoke softly, asking if he was okay. The man blinked, startled, as if he hadn't expected anyone to see him at all. He mumbled something about trying to find a certain address, his voice trembling, his map useless in the wind. Elijah nodded, steady and patient, offering to walk him there. The old man hesitated, studying him for a moment, then nodded back. Together, they started down the street. It should have been simple. Just a boy helping an old man. But the world doesn't always see what's simple. As they passed a row of cafes and boutiques, Elijah noticed the shift. Conversations quieted. Heads turned. Through glass windows, he saw people watching them, not with curiosity, but with judgment. A young black boy walking beside an older white man in a tailored suit. To them, it didn't look like kindness. It looked like suspicion. Elijah felt it in the air, the unease, the whispers. He tried to ignore it, focusing on the map and on keeping the old man steady as he stumbled over the uneven sidewalk. but the tension followed them like a shadow. Then came the voice. "Hey! What do you think you're doing?" Elijah turned. A man from a nearby store stood outside, his phone in hand, glaring. "Are you trying to rob him?" he barked, loud enough for everyone to hear. The old man looked startled, clutching Elijah's arm. Elijah stepped back, hands raised slightly, his heart thudding. "I'm just helping him," he said, but the man wasn't listening. Another bystander joined in, muttering something under their breath. A woman crossed the street to avoid them. Within minutes, a patrol car pulled up, lights flashing, siren short and sharp. Someone had called the cops. The officer stepped out, hand already near his holster. "Sir, step away from him," he ordered. His tone wasn't calm. It was clipped and suspicious. Elijah froze. He could feel every eye on him, the weight of assumptions pressing down. "I wasn't doing anything," he managed. He was lost, "I was just helping." But the officer wasn't listening either. They rarely do when their minds are already made up. The old man tried to speak, his frail voice barely cutting through the noise. "His helping me," he said weakly. "His with me." But the officer didn't seem to hear. He took another step closer, one hand on his gun, the other gesturing for Elijah to move back. Elijah's pulse pounded in his ears. He thought of his mother, her warnings, her fear every time he left the house. He thought of the stories she told him of boys who didn't come home. Then, something unexpected happened. The old man straightened, his voice suddenly firm, cutting through the tension like a blade. "That's enough," he said, his tone commanding. "This young man did nothing wrong." For a moment, silence. The officer hesitated, uncertain. The people watching began to whisper again, this time not about Elijah, but about the man standing beside him. The officer lowered his hand slightly, muttered something, then turned back to the patrol car. The crowd started to disperse, though a few lingered, still staring. Elijah stood still, breathing hard, unsure if it was really over. The old man looked at him with a faint smile. "You have a good heart," he said quietly. "Not many would have stopped." Elijah nodded, still shaken. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "I just did what was right." If you're still watching this moment, take a second to subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be seen. They continued walking in silence. Elijah didn't ask where the man lived anymore. He didn't care about directions or the address. Something deeper told him this wasn't just a lost stranger. When they finally reached a tall gate at the edge of the city, Elijah stopped. The guard at the entrance greeted the old man by name, Mr. Hamilton. Elijah froze. That name carried weight, one he'd heard before in news stories and business reports. The old man turned to him with a look Elijah would never forget. "You'll understand soon," he said softly. "Sometimes, people ignore the ones who can change their lives the most." Before Elijah could speak, the gates opened. The old man walked through, leaving him standing on the sidewalk, heart pounding, mind racing. Who exactly was Mr. Hamilton? And why did helping him feel like the beginning of something much bigger? Elijah couldn't shake the encounter. Days later, a car arrived with a letter inviting him to meet Mr. Hamilton again. The meeting changed everything. Inside the mansion, surrounded by wealth, Elijah saw the same man who once looked lost, now calm and composed. Hamilton thanked him and revealed how the incident went viral, how the world now saw what judgment looked like in real time. "People need to see," Hamilton said, handing Elijah a scholarship envelope. "You reminded me what humanity looks like." Elijah's name became a symbol, not of pity, but of proof. For weeks after that day, Elijah's life changed in ways he never imagined. The video spread, millions watched, but behind every headline was a memory he couldn't shake, the fear, the humiliation, the silence. The scholarship opened doors, but the truth lingered. Kindness had nearly cost him his freedom. Mr. Hamilton funded programs to fight bias. Elijah spoke at schools and events, reminding people that compassion must be louder than prejudice. But as attention faded, Elijah realized, many still lived the same story unseen. The world moved on, unchanged. One night, standing on his dorm balcony, Elijah looked out at the city and thought of that day, the lost man, the flashing lights, the quiet choice that changed everything. He still wore the same backpack, a reminder of who he was before the world noticed him. Mr. Hamilton passed 2 years later. At his funeral, Elijah said simply, "He taught me that wealth isn't about what's in your account, it's about what's in your heart." Because one boy stopped to help when everyone else looked away. One moment exposed everything the world tries to pretend it doesn't see. And as Elijah walked away from the crowd, one question stayed with him. How many times will we ignore what's right in front of us before compassion finally becomes instinct instead of choice?